The Indie Writers Club is brought to you by Publish Drive. With one click, self-publish your ebooks, audiobooks and print books to thousands of stores and libraries worldwide. And now you can start for free forever. Publish Drive's new free plan lets you publish your first ebook to 35 stores worldwide absolutely free. No subscription fees, no commissions. Keep 100% of the royalties. Get your titles online in just a few minutes at publishdrive.com.
It's the Indie Writers Club with Cara, Claire and James Blatch. A place to relax, chat, learn and vent about life as an independent author. Get episode alerts and links at indiewritersclub.com. Now, here's Cara and James.
Hello, it is the Indie Writers Club. It's a Friday and it's me, James Blatch.
And me, Cara Claire.
Hey, Cara Claire, looking very yellow. It looks like, I'm going to say, it looks like a child's drawing of a window behind you, which is not an insult, but it's a lovely...
So these are my doors that I painted that go from my kitchen to my living room, and I painted them yellow.
So it looks a bit like, do you know how a child would draw a very nice, happy painting with a yellow sun and a blue sky? It looks like that, but it's actually a door. If you're watching on YouTube.
It's actually a door, and I love it. It might be too bright for other people.
It's very yellow. I love the yellow.
I didn't quite mean to coordinate the top with the door, but you know.
I like it. I've got the wrong colour scheme going on here. We could press
we
that
won't
button.
talk about what outfit you're wearing.
If you're watching on YouTube.
If you're watching on YouTube, James is showing everybody. He's wearing the T-shirt that has our faces on it that was unveiled at the Christmas pub do. Which is very comfy to sleep in, I have to say, but I wouldn't wear mine in public.
Well, I would wear mine in public underneath the top.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, look, we're going to talk about book launches this week, which is, I think is a bit of a weak area of mine because I don't have that many books, and so launching is not something I've done very often, but I need to be better at it. I've got a rough idea of the outline, but I think you are far more refined in this area, so you're going to take the lead on that discussion. We wanted to talk about... We always talk about story. We always compare notes on things we've watched, and we both binge watched up until episode 7 of Paradise.
Yeah, the last one hasn't come out yet. Yeah, we just mentioned it before we started recording. We were like, no, we'll talk about this on air. Because I just think it's an absolute masterpiece of storytelling. If you haven't watched it, I don't know how much to say because they're quite careful in the marketing, aren't they?
Let's assume that people haven't watched it and we don't want to do spoilers, but we can talk around a little bit. And I can tell you in my little author group, I have someone, Boo Walker, who's a brilliant author, posted almost word for word what you just said. The most amazing storytelling, you've got to watch Paradise. But Jill and I had already watched it. We just saw it pop up. So it's APOC or post-APOC.
It is, but you wouldn't know it. They don't bill it as that. And when you look at all the kind of little mini descriptions of the episodes and stuff, you would not know.
You know from the beginning they're in a post-apocalyptic.
You know from episode 1, yeah.
Yes.
Not straight away.
So now calling it post-APOC will make it when you're watching it, it's a lot closer to watching The West Wing than it is The Last of Us. It's not. I know what you mean. It does not feel post-APOC, but the storytelling is very clever. Episode 7, which is the one we've said, so we're waiting for 8, aren't we? Which will be the finale.
Yeah, 8 is the last one.
So episode 7, I mean, along with episode 4 from The Last of Us first season, is one of those great episodes of TV that comes along once every 10 years.
Yeah, it's a very clever show in terms of flashbacks because I can find those quite irritating sometimes.
Yes, I agree.
It weaves them in perfectly and gives you enough. It's not frustrating at any point because you know that it's leading up to a reveal, and the pacing is so good because you're given enough that it never feels frustrating or confusing, even though you're not getting all the information. But episode 7 is the one where they finally give the big kind of reveal of what happened, kind of to lead them into the situation that they're in. And it's just like...
I mean, I think it does flirt with... I agree with you about flashbacks, and I think they kind of take you out of the moment. It's a bit like, not almost breaking the fourth wall because you're in this conceit, you're in this situation, and suddenly as a viewer, it's not like somebody saying, do you remember when this happened? It's like you go back to that scene and you're suddenly there watching this from 5 years ago, and that takes you out and that's jarring. I think they probably did make it slightly annoying with that, but for good end, if you know what I mean. They had to do it. It had to be done like that, and it's all paid off by the end of the and it wasn't enough to turn it off or anything. It's just I'm with you on that kind of taking back out. You want to carry on. You do want to feel like you're moving forward, which I'll mention another TV series watching moment, which is Severance, which is also dripping out episode by episode. And a lot of people sort of didn't like it at the beginning. It seemed very slow, not much happened, but actually a lot happens in every episode, but in a slow metronome-like way. So it gives the impression of nothing happening, but actually if you think about, if you're watching it and you write down what plot points happen, every episode moves forward quite fast.
Yeah, what I like about Paradise, I think, is that it has the mix of really complex plot that's really good, and also the characters, like the way that the depth of the characters. I think the main Sinatra, they call her character, I was having this conversation with my sister, leans a little bit in towards being a bit panto-villainy, little bit, but she does have a very complex, believable backstory.
Yeah.
And all of the characters do. And there's no kind of straight up, this person's a bad guy. And you get to see all of what kind of led them up to the point that they're at. And it's worth watching, even if it is not your thing, just in a study of like how to create characters that really affect people. Because I found it quite affecting when I watched it, especially episode 7. I was gripped, and then it left me with that kind of like feeling afterwards.
We actually thought we were watching the finale because it's got a finale feel about it, and then we had to look up afterwards and think they can't leave on that, can they? Surely, and they hadn't. There's another episode to come, and they do promise it's going to be tied up. I've got a theory about Sinatra. Well, my take on Sinatra. So she's the female lead in this, and I've got to be careful not to give any spoilers, but fairly certain in episode 1 it's already revealed that she's lost a son.
Yes, it's real quite early on, yeah.
So she's lost a son, and I think there is this so first of all, she's the type of slightly uptight woman. She's a businesswoman, had to be very proper and had to boss men around and do everything's even more difficult for a woman than a man in that world. And so she's somebody who probably internalizes a lot of her emotions. And I think that loss of control of she had all the resources in the world to save her son and couldn't. I think that loss of control has turned her into what you're describing as a slightly panto-villain, this complete ultra control. You are in the grip of my hand and nothing will ever come out of that hand. I think that's a solid backstory, right?
Yeah, really solid. And there's a couple of people who are positioned as villains, and then we find out more about them, and it makes you kind of go, that's what makes a good villain. When they're not really, you can empathise with them because something horrific has happened to lead them to that point. So I realise we've been a bit vague about the premise, but that's because it's so hard to not spoil anything. But I just really recommend it as a study in plot and character.
I think what we've said, that Sinatra as this billionaire has lost a child and is quite uptight and authoritative. All of that is clear in episode 1, so that's not a spoiler. And she's not really the main character. The main character we haven't mentioned, but by the way, so that's quite interesting because the main character should be the eyes and ears of the viewer, and that's correct with Paradise. We basically run the story through that. Now, this is probably going to be 2 spoilers. I probably can't say it, but Jill and I both had the same observation about a weakness in that wonderful episode 7. About his motivation, but I can't go into those details without
okay, that's interesting. We'll talk about that in the pub on Thursday.
Yes, we're going to have a pub night on Thursday. I've got a pub night tonight in London, and I was going to be playing golf tomorrow, might not be, and pub on Thursday, and then I'm going to the beach with my dogs and my wife on Friday. So I've got a lovely week ahead.
And we were going to briefly mention, in case anybody is wondering whether they should go to the London Book Fair next week.
Yeah.
I'm not going this year, but that's purely a time thing because we're in Ireland the week after for the conference. But you might be going, James?
Yeah, I mean, I wasn't thinking of going, but I did get an interesting email from somebody who's going to be there. And I know there's going to be some other people I work with going to be there. So I might well pop along for a day.
What would you say it's worth an indie author going these days?
No.
Because I used to go as a trad author, but in trad publishing, not trad author.
I think the only reason to go is if you know there are going to be people there who you'd like to meet in the flesh and have a chat with, whether that's Amazon or other service providers who are going to be there or speaking. I wouldn't go just on spec to wander around because it's a fairly boring trade fair of lots of weird and wonderful publishing companies from the tiny to the huge. And the talks they give are pretty benign, I think. I mean, that's not being disrespectful to the speakers who do their best, but they set up a fairly vanilla Q&As on subjects.
And the indies are kind of given their little corner, aren't they?
Yeah,
and
the
their
Indies
little
are
stage.
well, they're the talks I'm talking about. I've never been to the other talks. Actually,
Oh,
it
you
might
not?
be quite good because there are probably I do see some big names. I think Salman Rushdie was there last year, and Richard Osman was there last year, big writer. So you could probably go and see them speak. And if you actually, I've never done that side of it. So actually, when I say don't bother going, I'm looking at it purely from going to see the indie people and the indie experience. But I don't think it's worth it personally. Although it's not massively expensive, like 50 quid or something.
Yeah, and I think I know a couple of, quite big kind of 6-figure plus authors who have got meetings lined up. And it's quite a good way if you are actually going to organise meetings to get your face in front of people like Podium, Audible, those kind of people. If you can, but you have to book those and organise those in advance. You can't just you can talk to people who are at the stands, but if you want a worthwhile meeting, you need to book that in before you go.
Yeah, definitely. So I'll post into the Discord if I'm going to be there on what day, and if anyone else is going to be there, we can say hello. I also find that those trade fairs, I used to go to them when I was filming, doing video production. They're quite often pharmaceutical ones. That place in Frankfurt, I did go to the Frankfurt Book Fair last year, funnily enough, and it's in there, that Meze Centre, and they are quite soul-destroying places to be. The air's very, stale, and you get headachy and you get ill normally because there's 10,000 people in the same room.
I still get free books because when I used to go, when I was working in publishing, you used to get free books, especially on the last day, because all the publishers don't want to take them back with them. And quite often you get advanced copies that just had like a white jacket on them or something.
I'm sure you do, because there's lots of books there, and the stands are full of books. I'm sure if you went up and said... Go on
the last day if you're going to go. Because I've known people also get given things like plants and bookcases and all sorts of stuff because they have to pay to take that back from the exhibition centre. So a lot of the time, if they've got real plants and things on a stand, I've got a friend who ended up with a load of huge, enormous plants in his house that would have cost him hundreds of pounds because it wasn't a book fair, it was a similar thing. And I think it was Google or someone went, we don't want to ship these home. Do you want them? I was like, yeah. So go on the last day if you're going to go, so you can get some free stuff.
The best stand I ever saw there was whoever published James Patterson set up the Oval Office because I think Bill Clinton had written a book with James Patterson, one of his thrillers. So they set up the Oval Office and you could sit at the desk and had two Secret Service agents standing either side. And they had the classic chair that you could lean back on and you could pick up the phone. And when you picked up the phone, there's a guy saying, Mr. President, we're going to need you in the Situation
amazing.
Room. Yeah. And it was brilliant. So I did a bit of, in fact, if you're watching the YouTube version, I should drop in the video of me.
That's amazing.
So I don't know if they gave away that mahogany desk afterwards.
They might have done because it costs a lot of money to ship it back and they're not going to do anything with it afterwards unless they've hired it.
Should have asked. Okay, right. Should we move on to our subject then? We're only 12 minutes in. Look at that. How quick was that? Banter.
Yeah,
Lots of people, by the way, said they do like the banter.
Yes, I know. I think 12 minutes is acceptable. I think that's acceptable.
Oh, I think anything up to 50 minutes is probably fine.
Up to 50.
Up to 50 before we get on to the main subject.
Just listen to us having a chat.
So we're going to talk about book launches.
We are. So what did you do for your first book launch? Do you remember? Because I thought we should probably talk about launching your first book and then talk about some other things that you can add to that if it's not your first ever book, because they're going to be different if you've already got an audience versus if you're literally starting from scratch.
Yeah. So I ran Facebook ads for a year before I launched my first book. And I got the cover done. I put a cover up, a few lines of blurb, and I said, coming soon. Be first to hear. Or I don't think I had a lead magnet giveaway. I just got people to sign up. And I probably got 600 people, something like that, to sign up over a year of advertising. And so I had a list of 600 to launch into. And I got a couple of orange tags on day one when I launched, which I think is probably because of that.
Yeah.
Then, like I say, this is not a strong area of mine. So I'm keen to hear what you've got to say about this. But I think for book one, I had a bit of a strategy. I put it on pre-order. At that time, I put it on pre-order for quite a long time. Today, I think I'd only do a book for maybe 2 weeks on pre-order at a discount price, say $99 or $199. I'd let that run through to about 10 days after launch and then put it up to full price. And I would use that period to say, your chance now to grab this book, just to maximize the number of sales in that all-important first few days, to get it some visibility and kickstart what you're trying to do is you're trying to say to Amazon, this book's selling. So you need to be promoting it as well, because a lot of your sales come from when the Amazon algorithm picks it up and starts putting it in front of people.
Yeah, so traditional wisdom is kind of that your aim for when you launch is to get the highest rank as possible, because it kind of tells Amazon people are buying this book, but also to make sure that the people who are buying it are your target readers.
Yes.
So this is an important thing to say if it's your first ever book, because it's tempting to, it feels really daunting when it's your first book, you're starting from scratch, you've got no audience, you've got nothing. Ask all your friends and family, because you know that you need to get some sales on day one. So you ask everybody you know, my book's coming out on this day, will you buy my book? But actually, and I think I might have mentioned this before, my first ever book is an example of what not to do, because that's exactly what I did. And my mum, bless her, and all her friends, everybody bought this book. It was a young adult fantasy. And they also ended up having a slow cooker recipe book, which was also a book that my mum and all her friends had bought, because they had recommended it to each other. So from day one, my also boughts were completely screwy. So I think it's important to say that you need to give yourself time. The first thing is to actually give yourself time to come up with a strategy, to think about how much you do want to spend, because it's tempting to get really carried away with all the other stuff, the book package stuff we've talked about, the writing of the book, and then to go, great, I'm ready to launch. And you're kind of impatient to get it out there. So you don't give it enough time. And especially when it's your first one, you're going to need some time, and preferably you're going to need a little bit of a budget, because running ads, whether that's Amazon ads to your pre-order, which is something that I do. So I do a bit longer pre-order. I can do anything up to about 6 months for a pre-order, and run really low cost Amazon ads to that pre-order, which is not aiming to make any money from that in terms of generating sales. It's more getting Amazon to understand from the beginning who's clicking on it, who's going to that product page, and getting those kind of, if you think of the Amazon algorithm as like a little spider web, it's kind of drawing those lines to the right places to tell Amazon who's buying your book, like from the beginning.
Yeah.
Do you remember how much you spent on ads in that year?
I could probably look it up, because history's there forever, but I think I probably spent maybe £1,000 over a year.
Okay, so that's pretty good. That's pretty good.
Yeah.
For
so
600 people.
I was getting 8 and 9 cents and 8 and 9 pence clicks, but this was back in the day.
Yes. Whether that would be possible now, I don't know. But I think essentially, if it's your first ever book, especially, you're going to want to know what your budget is and what you're happy to lose, what you're happy to spend as an investment in your first book, because it's very unlikely that you're going to make profit on your launch from scratch day one, if you're spending some money to kind of build up your launch platform.
Yeah,
but there are lots of things that you can do for free.
I think just to dwell on that point you were saying about having the right audience, it's such an important one. Actually, as a downside for me was being on the self-publishing show and publishing, and I got a lot of author friends who wanted to support me buying the book, which was lovely of them, but it did screw up my also boughts as well for some time.
Yeah,
so
I
about
a
year later, when that had been clear, it became ultimately really crystal clear to me. I had to spend a lot of money on Facebook ads to train the algorithm again on my book and kind of reset it. And I did do that. And I knew I was going to lose money that year, although funnily enough, I don't think I did. But anyway, I had a budget for that. The Amazon ads side of things. So when you run those Facebook ads, what sort of Facebook ads? We're talking about targeted Facebook ads, those interest ads that are still available to us just today. That, as you say, Cara, you're not looking to make money here. You don't have to worry too much about the cost per click or even the click-through rate, because every click is doing the job. The ones that do get through, if it's the right person. Having a low CPC and a high click-through rate with the wrong people is worse than the opposite of having, expensive clicks, but the right people. You're just trying to tell Amazon, as you say, and that will stand you in such good stead. And that will benefit your Amazon ads. They will work better because they're in the Amazon ecosystem that's been trained by you using Facebook ads to say, this is who my audience is.
Yeah, and that's why I tend to do Amazon ads for pre-order, because you can be so specific with your targeting. Like, you really can target your exact authors and books that you're after. And it can be quite hard to get Amazon to spend money on a pre-order campaign. But even if it's just 1 or 2 sales that you're getting, it's really just about giving it the information. And you can even be quite clever, and you can target authors who are releasing around the same time as you and things like that, so that Amazon's going to show those people your book as well, because you're releasing at the same time. So I would recommend Amazon ads for pre-order above Facebook ads, but Facebook ads if you're trying to build a newsletter, Although I've never used paid Facebook ads for building a newsletter, I have to say.
Yeah,
I've done it for reader magnets.
I guess it's what sort of campaigns you run. So within Facebook ads, don't use the Advantage Plus at this stage because you don't want it going off thinking it's finding people, and it might find the wrong set of people and work well with them, which is terrible for you. And don't use the auto campaigns in Amazon ads. You can use Amazon ads. The targeted campaigns, those ASINs and categories and books, are going to be much better for you. Yeah, so that's kind of training the audience, which does involve some investment. A lot of people listening will think, well, I don't have £1,000 to spend this year on Facebook ads, which is fair enough and probably normal.
Yeah,
so
and
what do they do?
I think most of the things that you can do for your launch are actually free these days or very low cost. The ads is kind of like an added bonus, if you like. If you do have some money to spend, then that's a good place to put it. But so with my women's fiction, I was starting completely from scratch. This is Poppy Pennington Smith, which is now published by Vinci. And I had no budget. I could have put a budget towards it, but I didn't want to because I just wanted to try and do it for as low cost as possible because I was starting a brand new pen name and I wanted it to be as low risk as possible. So I used BookFunnel and Story Origin to build up an ARC team from the beginning. And to start with, I didn't have a reader magnet. So if you haven't heard of BookFunnel or Story Origin, they are places where you can, if you've got a reader magnet, you can give it away for free and you can join group promotions where other authors are emailing their newsletter list and they'll say, hey guys, I'm in this promotion this week. You can get all these free reader magnets from all these other authors. You just have to sign up to their newsletter list. But you can also do it with a sample. If you don't have an entire reader magnet, there are promotions where you can just do a sample. So you can do like the first 3 or 4 chapters of a book that you're going to be releasing. So that was what I did to start with because I didn't have a reader magnet. And then I wrote a 10 or 15K reader magnet. And I ended up, I did this for about 6 months, joined all the promotions that I could. And it doesn't matter if you don't have anyone on your newsletter list to start with. I think Story Origin asks you to disclose it, but some promotions will stipulate we want you to have certain amount, most won't. And I ended up with just shy, I think, of 3,000 people on my mailing list in 6 months. Now, the important thing to say is they weren't people who were going to buy my book. So a lot of these readers are looking for freebies. That's why they're joining all these authors' lists. But they did become a really good ARC team. They became the people who reviewed for me, who loved my stories. And when just starting out, that was what I was looking for. I was looking for the right readers. I was looking for people who were going to review for me, who weren't friends and family, and people who were going to, share it on launch day. And some of them did buy it on launch day because they became fans and wanted to support me. But I gave it about 6 months of actually building that up and also building up a dialogue. So I had a really good automation sequence in place. I think this might be a trick from Newsletter Ninja. So the first email that they got when they signed up introduced me, told them 3 things about me and said, please let me know 3 interesting things about you because I really want to get to know you. And the amount of people who actually replied to that email with things about them, and I replied to every single one. I replied to everybody and really made an effort to build up those relationships. So by the time I launched, I had my ARC team who reviewed for me. Like I said, a lot of them did actually buy the book because they'd become fans. I developed a good relationship with them, but that was all completely free. That didn't cost any money at all. And that was about, when was that? 5 or 6 years ago now. Right. So TikTok wasn't a thing then. It wasn't as easy to get organic traffic on social media. But BookFunnel, Story Origin, they're really great places. You can also do direct swaps with authors as well that you can organize for around when you launch. And that would be my absolute number one. If you've got no money to spend, do that because you're going to build up both your review team and people who will hopefully become fans and buy your book.
Yeah. I know I had a look at the BookFunnel. I haven't looked at Story Origin in detail for a while now, but it works better for the big genres. Yes, if you're in a tighter, smaller genre, you might struggle. And techno thrillers, the thing I write, historical techno thrillers, is not great when you look at. But
you can create your own promotions as well. You can create a promotion. So if you go on there and you think, oh, there's nothing for my genre, this is rubbish, just create one. Create some. And so there are 2 types. You can do the ones where you're using your reader magnet or your sample to build up your newsletter. Then once you launch, you can do price promotion ones as well. So like 9p or whatever it is that you're promoting at. Or if your book's in KU, there's often Kindle Unlimited promotions as well. But obviously, I mean, TikTok and Instagram are going to be huge tools in most authors' toolboxes now if you've genuinely got no money to spend.
Yeah, and they are still social media platforms that work organically well. And we think that things get worse over time, that Facebook ads are more expensive, TikTok isn't as far-reaching as it once was. But at the same time, a few years ago, we would never have predicted TikTok would have come along and suddenly been this amazing platform for selling books. And so we don't know what's around the corner. Things will chop and change, and keep an eye on that. But at the moment, Instagram and TikTok are still places where you can get visibility and you can get sales as a result of that, or sign-ups to your mailing list.
Yeah, I mean, if you contrast, so my women's fiction pen name, so that was 2020, with my reverse harem Cara Claire books, that was 2022, late 2022. And I didn't do any of the book funnel stuff for that at all. I just used TikTok because TikTok was blowing up at the time. And I credit that with that book. You know, number one in that series is still sticky right to this day, like a high rank, still has really great organic, like Amazon pushing it for me. And that's because I used TikTok to get the right readers to be placing pre-orders. So I had just shy of 1,000 pre-orders before launch.
Wow.
And that was with zero money spent at all. It was all TikTok.
Gosh.
And subsequently, I still don't spend on ads for that pen name. It's all done through organic social media. And yes, it's different now. Like, it's very different now. I wouldn't expect to have those same results now if I was launching a brand new pen name. But having said that, have a look in, the TikTok Facebook group. Adam Beswick has a group called Novel Gains where he does a challenge every now and again for people. And I think it's Elizabeth Joy. She's one of the reasonably new authors who blew up on TikTok and launched her first ever book to number God knows what in the charts just from organic marketing. Again, it depends on your genre, but don't write it off, because just because you're not seeing lots of content for that doesn't mean that there aren't people out there looking for it. So TikTok, I'd say pick one. I mean, TikTok and Instagram are interchangeable, really. You can kind of, whatever you post on TikTok, you can post on as an Instagram reel and vice versa. Some people are just more comfortable with one platform or the other. So it really doesn't have to be a massive amount of hard work, and you don't need to have finished the book. You can do things like if you're pushing a pre-order on Instagram or TikTok, get a mock-up printed, shove your cover on it, put a bunch of lorem ipsum text in it, and just literally hold up the book. You'd have to put your face on it. Or before I launched Nova, I just used my Kindle. I hadn't written the book. I just loaded the cover onto my Kindle and just used that to show in my videos. Yeah. Or you can just have a couple of sentences, a couple of hooks from your text. So don't feel like don't wait until you've finished it to start pushing. But do make sure that you've got your pre-order listed before you start pushing, because the last thing you want is to start pushing, have a video go viral, and then you go, oh shit, I've got no newsletter sign up. I've got no website. I've got no pre-order listed. I've got nowhere for people to go, because that would be sickening.
At the same time, you also have to be confident you're going to have your book ready to release, because you don't want to have to cancel pre-orders. You're getting Amazon's bad books for that. And you write quicker, you're more functional as a writer than I am. I would not dare personally have pre-order up unless I'm damn sure the book's virtually finished and going to be ready to go. But that's
well,
different.
I'm taking a slightly different tack with my next book is going to be a standalone. So that's going to be a different approach too, because when you're launching a book one and in a series, I think you feel happier to make a loss on that, because you know that your main aim is to get as many people as possible to read book one so that they'll then read book two and book three. And with my reverse harem series, that was kind of what I was aiming for, because I knew I was going to be rapid releasing the rest of the series. So I was really just pushing that book one. My next book is going to be a standalone romantasy book. So it's completely unknown for me, and I'm trying to give it a bit more time. I'm used to the rapid release model, where the fact that you're rapid releasing also helps the Amazon algorithm to push things. So I'm going to actually have the book finished before I put it on pre-order, and then give it at least 4 months on pre-order. So I can push it really, really hard, knowing that it's written, listed, so people can actually buy it. And I'm not going to have to, change the date or anything like that, which I have done in the past. I have done that a couple of times. And don't panic if you do have to do that, by the way.
Yeah, well, you can do it once or twice, can't you? But I think Amazon does probably make a note somewhere on their ledger of naughty people.
If you do it more than once, you lose your pre-order privileges for a year.
Again, the naughty step.
Having said that, if you've got a legitimate reason, if you're ill or something, they have been quite kind to me in the past. And I know other people who've emailed them and said, particularly when COVID was happening. The dog ate my laptop, so I couldn't hand it in.
Look at my manuscripts. Both our dogs are capable of that. Okay, well, I have 2 resources to mention. One is a new PDF, newish PDF that I've created for the Indie Writers Club, that based on those 2 episodes I did a little while ago, 7 and 8, because before you can launch your book, the bit before then is your book has to be very clearly in a genre, and you've got to know what your book is. Otherwise, everything we've said makes no sense. You can't market a book if you're not crystal clear about it and you've got all the packaging right. You're going to undermine all that work if your packaging is wrong. So if you want to be sure about that, the title, the author name, the main character name, the cover, the blurb, how to align them all. I've written a guide on that. It's a short guide, but it's useful, I hope. And that you can download that if you go to indiewritersclub.com/5 things. That's the letter, the number 5 and the letters things. Let me just double check if I've got 5 things set up with spelt it out, because whenever you say this, you really
While
have to
you
have
do
both.
that, this kind of links to me saying, remember to have links in the back of your book, because when you're launching book 1, you've also got to think about what you're going to be launching next. And the fact that, say you have that video take off, or one of your newsletter swaps does super well, or your ads really kick in, or whatever it is that leads people to be buying that book, you've got to capture them. If they love that first book, the best thing you can do is capture those people and turn them into super fans, so that every launch you then have is going to be more and more and more powerful. If you keep building it, which brings us back to what we just harp on about all the time, which is building your newsletter, your super fan community, so that every launch that you have, it's a bigger and better launch. Because then, so with my automation sequence, I filter it down so that people who have above a certain amount of percentage open rate for my emails get put into kind of these are the good people group. And then from that group, I use that to recruit for my ARC team. And from the ARC team, the people who always review for me and are great, then get siphoned off into, would you like to join my street team, which is slightly different. So the street team, which I do, and I think this is probably something that you do when you've got subsequent books, but you can certainly try it for book 1 if you can build up that group of people. The street team are people who are going to be your biggest fans. They're going to shout about your book. They're going to go on TikTok, Instagram, wherever, and tell everybody to read it. So in the couple of weeks leading up to the launch, I do giveaways. I actually released a chapter a week for my last one. And kind of did a little read along thing. And then I asked them to do a post with like quotes from that chapter, their favorite quotes. And then I chose a winner for whose post was the prettiest post. And spoiler alert, everyone won something at some point, because that was just the nice thing to do. And, games and things like that. And then there was a launch night party, like a digital Zoom party. So things like that, they don't necessarily directly translate to sales, but particularly in romance, they absolutely love that. And these are the people who still, I see them recommending me on Instagram all the time. They're the ones who are going to go into the Facebook groups and say, this is my favorite author ever. She's amazing. So it's kind of, you've got to have your long-term strategy as well, not just be thinking about how many sales you're going to get on day 1.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, that's the best marketing almost ever, is marketing for that long-term, that residual sales that are going to happen in the future without you having to spend money because you've invested in the past. Okay, so the first resource is indiewritersclub.com/5 things, either letters or numbers, and that will get you that PDF download. And the other one, we haven't timed this deliberately at all, but it's perfect timing because Self-Publishing Launchpad is open for 3 weeks. Self-Publishing Launchpad has a lot of this all spelled out. All of this spells out. It does,
yeah. When I launched my first book, it was through the course. I literally followed step by step the instructions, because it's overwhelming. And to have that, I think there's actually literally a checklist, isn't there? There is what to do and when to do it.
Yeah, it's like 100 days out, 60 days out, 30 days out, and then 30 days after launch, 60 days. And that's module 7 of I think it's 11. How many? I can't remember how many modules there are now in it. Maybe 10 modules. So Self-Publishing Launchpad sets out everything you need to do, and it's a very detailed course. It's not one to do in a weekend. It's one to do over several weeks and months and then follow it, but it has an entire section just on how to launch your book. So you can sign up for that. It's open for a couple more weeks as we release this on Friday. So if you go to learnselfpublishing.com/launchpad, you will find that there.
Yeah. And as somebody who took it, like when I was just literally starting out like years ago now, it's still something that I go back to occasionally and double check that list. And it has some stuff in there about using price promotions and things like that, which I don't really do. So I haven't talked about it much, but there's definitely a strategy that some people use more if you're launching like subsequent books in a series, but you can use it for a book one if you're just trying to get the readers, because it's quite a good idea not to get all your sales on day one, because you're kind of trying to show Amazon not just that you're selling on day one, but you kind of want to have little peaks like across probably the first month to show it's not just selling on day one, it's people are buying it, you know, all the time. And that's something that you can kind of, if you're clever, stagger the promotions for and do stuff like that.
That's a really good idea. And I think that's in the course, is that you'd have your initial burst, and then like 2 weeks later you'd do a Hello Books or a free books, your bargain booksy, give it another bump.
Yeah, and it goes into all of the stuff like with automations and how you can use your mailing list and kind of retarget them and all things like that, which is, you know, a level of information that you don't get from books or, you know, even, you know, we've just kind of touched on the outline of stuff here.
Yeah, obviously there's a lot more detail to it. There's also BookBub. Don't forget they have some new release promotions that are a lot easier to get
one,
than...
and I think my headphones have just died.
Well, we can still hear you.
Okay, good.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you, yeah,
okay.
I can now. They just went power off. So, okay.
That happened to me when I was running the other day on a 14-kilometre run. I was really disappointed because I'd spent ages doing my playlist.
I just felt like she was fed up with our banter as well.
This is the substance, not the banter.
I had a BookBub new release. I think it's for one of my not first in series. So that might affect it, because I'm not sure if people respond as well to something that's not a first in series.
You were disappointed.
Don't rule out BookBub, because I was disappointed with that. Yeah, but don't rule them out, because they do have the new release feature that you can apply for. Because normal BookBub, you need to have like reviews and social proof, but the new release feature, and I think most of the promo sites have something that's geared towards actual new releases and letting people know that this is new.
Talking of, I've put in for a featured deal on the 19th of February. Still haven't heard. Still in review. It seems a long time. Normally it's about 5 days, isn't it?
Interesting. You know what? I've never got one for my reverse harm series. I got one for my women's fiction, which I got it in a February. Can't remember what year it was. Probably 2021. And the results of that lasted about a year. The tail of what,
they are incredible.
What that BookBub did for me lasted about an entire year. Can I get one for this women's fiction series? It's like, it's got so many more reviews. I mean, my reverse harm series, I just can't get one.
I think this is a 99 one. I've never put in for before. I've only ever done free. And I've had a couple, but we'll see. Anyway, I've not been selected several times in a row, so maybe it's my turn.
Maybe.
Well, they're taking a long time to think about, so that's for sure.
I mean, that's the thing about BookBub, though, is there is an editorial team kind of looking at it, isn't there?
Yes. The featured deal.
So powerful. It's not just, it's not the same as the other promo sites where you can literally just, anyone can buy a promo. BookBub, the reason it's so sought after is because they actually do choose them on an editorial basis. So
yeah. And they're building their list at the moment, and they talk about 15 million on there. And I see adverts on X. I see adverts. Somewhere else I saw one pop up the other day. So they're working hard. But I know feature deals are expensive, but they do work, and they're spending that money on building that reader list still. I still find it amazing that you'll know people who read lots of books on their Kindle. If they're not in the indie publishing world, it seems to me they've not heard of BookBub. And to us, it's like this huge brand.
I know.
That has a massive reader list, but there's still room for growth. Let's put it out. That's why we started Hello Books. We just feel that there's the penetration in the sort of readers sphere is actually quite low.
Yeah, and I think for good quality curated ones, especially because a lot of the, there's so many free promo sites, and some of them are, not that great quality books. So from a reader's point of view, you kind of want to feel like you actually are getting special deals. You actually are getting told about books that are really good quality that you might not have heard about before. So, I mean, if anyone knows anyone at BookBub, like...
I know people at BookBub.
Put me in touch. I'm like, I need a BookBub for my...
Listen, I don't lobby on behalf of myself at BookBub, so I'm not going to lobby on behalf of anyone else. I talk to them about professional things, about sponsorships and stuff. It's not what it's there for. Not what the relationship's there for. Okay, now talking of running, so all things being equal, I'll be running the Cambridge Half Marathon on Sunday, along with our friend Robin.
This coming Sunday?
This coming Sunday, yep.
I didn't know I would have come to support you guys.
Well, you still can. It's only
I can't.
Tuesday.
I'm busy now.
You're busy now. Okay. But having said that, I have been injury-free throughout the whole training period, which is about since started in early December. And last night I went for a run, and the trainers I use for the race are different from the ones I train in. And I thought, well, I better give them one outing, sort of 5K run. And I came back, and an hour after I came back, I couldn't stand up with my ankle. My ankle was throbbing.
No.
I don't know what I did to it. Something to do with those trainers. Woke up, so I put it on ice. I woke up this morning praying that I'd be able to put some weight on it. What I did, I could walk, but it was painful. And then once I was up and about and walking, it disappeared. And where I am now, it's disappeared. It's fine. I can feel a little twinge there, but nothing more than that. So obviously last night I was really disappointed, thinking I'm going to have to pull out. But now I'm thinking, I don't know. I think I'll have to run, and it must be something to do with those trainers, but those trainers are the trainers to race in. They are fantastic.
Are they? If they're going to cripple you.
I know, but I've run the half marathon in them before, and I got my personal best this time last year, 1:56:31.
Question, are you going to wear the Indie Writers Club t-shirt to run the race?
I am not going to wear the Indie Writers. I should do, shouldn't
Make
I?
Robin wear his too.
That would be quite funny, yeah.
I'll come if you wear the t-shirt.
I got to wear, I don't know which one. I don't know. I wear one of my many running tops, maybe one from the Great North Run or something. It's a shame you're not going to be there.
Everyone in the Discord, bully James into wearing a t-shirt, please.
Yeah, I just hope I can run. So I'll do another 5K tomorrow in those new trainers, and then have to take a view. I suppose what might happen if that goes badly again, I'm going to have to resign myself to running in my old trainers because I'm with my ankles, which I hate.
You're talking to, I know nothing about trainers, and all that stuff.
Do you know, like you play golf, you can spend $1 gazillion on your golf clubs or nothing. And for my quality, it makes no difference. Whatever magazine tells you otherwise, whatever ping manufacturer tells you otherwise, I'm not good enough to make a difference. The difference between those Nike Vaporflies and the Brooks training.
We are not sponsored by Nike. This is not an affiliate link.
It's unbelievable. All my personal bests are wearing those trainers. They are light as a feather, and they're built on foam, something that just allows you to spring along, and it's incredible. Low impact on your legs, although apparently not on your ankles. So there you go. Anyway, this is not a running podcast.
It is not. No, we've put some banter in at the end. Look at that.
A bant sandwich.
Yeah. Have you got anything else to say about launching?
No, you're still going through your list?
No, I've kind of done my list. That was pretty much everything.
No, I think it's now time for the professionals to go to launch.
Okay.
earnselfpublishing.com/launchpad.
Your Cara Claire, go by the course.
Let the professionals take over. No, we're not to be ignored, but we can't do it. It's a complex subject in 45 minutes. But no, that's it for me. We still have one spot. It's weird how it's gone. Our retreat sold out quite quickly. Didn't sell out. Our sold 99% quite quickly. Now one spot has remained there. But the good news is we have had some hiccups with the venue, and that has been resolved. So we didn't say this out loud, having taken everyone's money. Like last week, I wasn't convinced at all that the venue was still there for us, which is weird. But it turns out it's just a Cambridge University.
They're just very relaxed. They're very relaxed in their communication.
Very relaxed. Stroke what you might call inefficient, but let's not call them that. Let's call them relaxed, because it's Cambridge University and they operate on a different planet in there than we do.
We should just trust more, I guess. But we're used to the kind of events where
you get an email back
is done very quickly, very efficient, straight away. To not For us, it was a bit disconcerting, but it's all fine, everybody.
There's fine.
One place left. And we might be able to add more if there's demand for it. So if that last place sells out and you're interested, just email us and let us know, and we'll see what we can do.
Yeah, I don't know if there's any rooms left. It looks like there's not. If you go onto their own website, it says they've sold out. But I know they have sold out apart from the lodge house. As you go in at the beginning of the very long drive up to the house, there's a house there. Quite expensive, but I think there are 2 bedrooms in there, and that's available.
Buy the lodge house and then just pop
the lodge house, and you can absolutely be part of it. Okay, that's it from us. Thank you very much indeed, Cara. Have a lovely week. Well, I'll see you on Thursday night in the public house,
which is very confusing for everyone because they're listening to this on Friday.
I'll see you last night.
See you last night.
Yeah. All right. Bye.
Bye.
Sign up for episode alerts at indiewritersclub.com. Come and chat with us at our exclusive Discord server at indiewritersclub.com/Discord. Or join our Facebook group at indiewritersclub.com/Facebook. And you can support the podcast at indiewritersclub.com/support. And don't forget to share your weekly word counts, because no matter what you've achieved this week, we're here to cheer you on. Thank you for being part of the Indie Writers Club.
The Indie Writers Club was brought to you by Publish Drive. With one click, self-publish your ebooks, audiobooks and print books to thousands of stores and libraries worldwide. And now you can start for free forever. Publish Drive's new free plan lets you publish your first ebook absolutely free. No subscription fees, no commissions, keep 100% of the royalties. Get your titles online in just a few minutes at publishdrive.com.